You spent 20 minutes explaining yourself, and they believed you less than if you'd said nothing. That's not bad luck. That's a law. Every justification you offer is evidence of guilt. Dostoevsky saw why explanation is confession, and once you see it, you can't go back. They told you communication is everything. Be honest. Be clear. If someone doesn't understand you, help them understand. Explain your reasons. Show them your heart. This is what good people do. This is how you build trust. This is the story they sold you to keep you small. Here's what they didn't tell you. The more you explain, the guiltier you look. The more you justify your choices, the more you admit those choices need justifying. The more words you use to defend yourself, the more ammunition you hand your judge. And everyone becomes your judge the moment you start explaining. The truth flips everything. Silence holds more power than any defense you could build. The person who explains nothing controls everything. The person who justifies their existence has already lost. You know this feeling. You've felt it in your body. That tightness in your throat when someone questions your choice. That pressure in your chest when they look at you with doubt. Your hands get hot. Your mind races. You need them to understand. You need them to see you meant well. So you start talking. You explain. You give them your reasons, your context, your good intentions. And with every word, you feel yourself shrinking. You feel their doubt growing. 20 minutes later, you're still typing that text about why you couldn't make their party. And you know they think you're lying. That humiliation you felt, that wasn't random. That was the cost of begging to be believed. Every time you explain yourself, you lose something. You leak status. You hand them the power to decide if your reasons are good enough. You drain your energy defending things that needed no defense. You apologize for choices that required no apology. You give away your right to exist on your own terms, piece by piece, explanation by explanation, until you're asking permission to have boundaries, to say no, to want what you want, to be who you are. This goes deeper than you think. A Russian writer named Dostoevsky saw something society pretends isn't real. He wrote about a man, the underground man, who refused to play the game everyone else played. This man saw that every polite conversation is a power negotiation. Every social interaction has a hidden judge and a hidden defendant. And the moment you start explaining, you've accepted your role. You're the defendant. They're the judge. The trial is already happening. Dostoevsky didn't write about good people finding redemption. He wrote about what happens when you see the machinery under society and refuse to be its fuel. He showed you what no one wants you to see, that beneath every "just explain yourself," beneath every "help me understand," beneath every "why did you do that," is a demand. A demand that you prove your legitimacy, that you earn your right to choose, that you submit your decisions for approval. You weren't supposed to see this, but now you have. And the question isn't whether you should stop explaining yourself. The question is, why were you ever explaining yourself in the first place? The answer isn't your fault. The compulsion to justify your existence wasn't born in you, it was installed. You weren't born needing to justify your existence. No child comes into the world believing their choices need approval. A baby cries when hungry, takes what they want, sleeps when tired, exists without explanation. Then the training starts. Remember the question, the one that shaped everything. Why did you do that? Your parents' voice, your teacher's tone, every authority figure who ever looked down at you waiting for an answer. They weren't asking because they were curious. They were installing something, a program, a reflex. The message underneath every demand for explanation was simple. Your reasons don't count until we approve them. Your judgment means nothing without our permission. You don't get to just decide. You must pass inspection first. That's where it started. The belief that you owe the world an explanation, that your internal authority is always secondary, that existing on your own terms requires external validation. This wasn't your fault. You were a child. You learned what kept you safe. You learned that explaining yourself kept the big people calm, kept you out of trouble, kept you fed and held and approved of. The explanation reflex is obedience training, and you mastered it before you could even name it. But there's more. Your brain has older wiring than childhood. Go back further, back to tribes and survival. Your ancestors lived in groups of 50, maybe 100 people. Being cast out meant death. No group meant no food, no protection, no chance. So your nervous system learned something deep. Being misunderstood by the group is a threat to your life. Your body still believes this. That's why your chest gets tight when someone judges you. That's why your hands shake when you're questioned. That's why you feel that animal panic rising when someone doesn't understand. Your body is screaming, explain yourself or die. The threat isn't real anymore, but your survival system doesn't know that. Now look at who benefits from all this. Who wins when you constantly explain yourself? Every boss who demands you justify your time. Every friend who cross-examines your choices. Every partner who turned communication into an audit system for your life. The whole structure stays stable when you accept that you owe everyone an explanation. When you believe that your sovereignty needs permission. Think about it. What happens to a system built on control when people stop explaining themselves? It collapses. So they keep you explaining, keep you justifying, keep you defending, keep you small. Count what you've lost without knowing it. Every time you explained yourself, you positioned yourself below the person asking. Judge above, defendant below. Every defense you offered drained energy you'll never get back. Hours of mental space consumed justifying things that were already fine. You've apologized for things that needed no apology. You've manufactured guilt over choices that harmed no one. And your relationships, the more you explained, the more they probed. The more you justified, the more they questioned. The dynamic shifted. You became the child. They became the parent. You gave them audit rights over your entire life. Robert Greene wrote about power. Nietzsche wrote about masters and slaves. Dostoevsky wrote about the underground man who saw that society demands you justify your suffering, your pleasure, your very existence, and his refusal became his only freedom. These thinkers saw what you're seeing now. You've been running broken software your entire life. Programs installed without your consent, running in the background, draining your power. And you never knew to question it because everyone around you was running the same programs. But now you know. So the question changes. The question isn't whether you should explain yourself. The question is, what makes silence more powerful than any explanation you could ever give? Here's the mechanism that changes everything. When you explain yourself, you give people something to judge. You hand them your reasons, your motives, your justifications. Now they have material to work with. They can poke holes, find contradictions, decide if you're good enough. But when you stay silent, when you leave empty space, their mind has to fill it. And here's what happens. They fill it with their own stories. And those stories almost always make you more powerful than any explanation you would have given. This is how human brains work. We can't stand gaps. We can't handle missing information. So we create meaning where there is none. When you don't explain, their brain races to complete the picture. And because you gave them nothing to attack, nothing to question, nothing to judge, they assign you higher status than you would have claimed yourself. You become mysterious, deliberate, someone who doesn't need approval. The silence makes them work, and that work makes you powerful. But there's another layer. When you over-explain, you give them weapons. Every detail is a point they can attack. Every reason is something they can say wasn't good enough. Every justification creates a new opening for doubt. Silence gives them nothing. The judge cannot judge what refuses to be put on trial. You're not playing defense because you never acknowledged the court had authority over you in the first place. Look at how people operate. There are 3 ways to move through the world. Most people are pleaders. They explain everything, justify constantly. Every choice comes with a paragraph of reasons. They leak power with every defense. They're always on trial, always proving themselves, always hoping the jury will finally believe them. These people are exhausted. You can see it in their eyes. Then there are politicians. They learn something. They offer calculated silence, strategic gaps. They're better at the game, but they're still playing it. They know when to withhold, but they're always thinking about the other person's reaction, always managing perception, always performing mystery rather than being it. Then there are the sovereigns. These people exist outside the entire framework. They don't acknowledge the court has any right to judge them. They're not being mysterious or strategic. They simply don't recognize that they owe anyone an explanation. This isn't a technique. This is a way of being. Dostoevsky wrote about these people, and they're always the most dangerous characters in his books. Not because they're cruel, because they've exited the social contract entirely. Watch the difference in real life. Someone asks you why you can't make it to their event. Most people say, "I can't make it because I have this work deadline, and honestly I'm so tired, and I need to take care of some personal things, and I really hope you understand, and maybe we can do something next week instead." Now the other person is evaluating. Are those reasons good enough? Is the work deadline real? Are you just avoiding them? You're on trial. Your reasons are evidence, and the verdict is always guilty. Now watch this. "I won't be there." That's it. 2 seconds. The other person's mind starts working. Must be something important. Must be serious. They're not begging. They're not justifying. So it must be legitimate. See what happened? They filled the gap with respect. You gave them nothing to judge, so they couldn't find you lacking. This works everywhere. Someone questions a choice you made. The pleader says, "I chose this because of these 5 reasons, and I thought about it carefully, and I weighed all the options." The sovereign says, "This is what I decided." Done. Someone accuses you of something. The pleader scrambles to defend. "No, that's not what happened. Let me explain. You don't understand. It wasn't like that." The sovereign says nothing, or just, "Think what you want." Watch how that lands. The person accusing expects defense, expects scrambling, expects fear. When they get none, they falter. The ground shifts. Your friend demands to know why you were absent. The pleader builds an elaborate excuse. The sovereign says, "Something came up." No details, no apology, no justification. Your friend's mind fills the gap. Must have been important. Must have been real. The vagueness makes it true. This changes everything once you see it. Your personal peace when you stop performing for every interrogator. Your relationships when you stop being something people can audit. You start noticing who in your life demands explanations. Those people reveal themselves as controllers. They require your submission. They need to approve your choices to feel powerful. And when you stop feeding that need, either they adjust or they leave. Both outcomes tell you the truth. But this goes beyond relationships. This is about whether you need permission to exist. Dostoevsky's characters who keep explaining themselves always lose. Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment. His destruction starts the moment he begins justifying his actions. The confession is his death. But the underground man? He refuses to make himself understandable to society. He refuses to explain his suffering or his joy, and that refusal is his only dignity, his only power. Your life is either lived testimony or defended case. Either you exist on your own authority or you exist on borrowed permission. Dostoevsky didn't give you this choice to be kind. He gave it to you because once you see the machinery, you can't unsee it. Every interaction becomes clear. Every demand for explanation reveals itself as a demand for submission. But here's where this gets dangerous, because you can't just mimic silence and expect it to work. Done wrong, this backfires in ways that destroy you. The power isn't in silence alone. That's where people get this wrong and destroy themselves. You can't just stop talking and expect everyone to bow down. Done crudely, this becomes obvious manipulation. Done without real change inside, it's just a mask, and everyone can smell a mask. Here's when it backfires. When you're clearly hiding something and everyone knows it. When guilt is written all over your face, but you're playing the silence game. That's not sovereignty, that's just visible lying. Or when you weaponize it, when you say, "I don't owe you an explanation," with poison in your voice. You're still giving them power because you're reacting to their judgment. You're still playing their game. You just switched tactics. Or when you actually do owe someone information, when real responsibility exists, when someone trusted you and you broke that trust. Strategic silence here isn't power. It's cowardice dressed up as strength. The tell that you're faking it? You're watching their reaction. You stay silent and then monitor their face, check their texts, wonder if it's working. You're still performing. You're still seeking their approval, just through a different method. That means you haven't changed at all. You just learned a new trick. The real shift isn't external. It's not about what you say or don't say. It's about what dies inside you. You have to stop needing to be understood. That addiction has to go. The belief that being misunderstood is an emergency. The fantasy that the perfect explanation will finally make them see you correctly. The hope that if you just find the right words, they'll get it. All of that has to burn away. What has to be born in its place? Authority that lives only in you, not borrowed, not given, not approved, just yours. Dostoevsky's characters who achieve this aren't heroes. They're not admirable. They're terrifying because they've stopped caring what the crowd thinks. They've exited the contract that says your worth is up for vote. They don't explain themselves because they genuinely don't recognize the question as legitimate, not as a strategy, as a reality. That's what you're becoming. Not someone who plays silence like a card, someone who doesn't acknowledge the game exists. Here's your challenge. For the next 72 hours, when someone asks you to explain a decision or a choice or an action, don't. Not with attitude, not passive-aggressively, just redirect. "I'm not going there," or "I've decided," or just change the subject. Watch what happens. Some people will push harder. They're testing you. Some will respect you immediately. Some will get confused and uncomfortable. That discomfort is information. It shows you who needed your submission, who built their relationship with you on the foundation that you're always available for audit. Those people will either adjust or leave. Either way, you win. Remember that feeling in your throat? That compulsion to explain yourself? You see it now for what it is, a trained response, installed by people who needed your compliance. The paradox makes sense now. You thought explanation created understanding, but it created opportunity for judgment. You thought silence was avoidance, but it's the only thing that can't be cross-examined. Staying vague isn't evasion. It's refusing to enter a courtroom that never had jurisdiction over you. You can't unknow this. Every time someone says, "Why did you do that?" you'll feel the trap being set. Every time you start to justify yourself, you'll catch the power leaving your body. You've been given a lens that shows you what most people never see: the hidden dynamics, the invisible transfers of authority, the silent negotiations happening under every conversation. Dostoevsky didn't offer this as a gift. He offered it as a burden. Because once you see the game, you can't play it innocently anymore. Every interaction becomes a choice: submit or refuse, explain or exist. This isn't advice. This isn't a tip for better communication. This is diagnosis. There are people who operate from sovereignty and people who operate from submission. People who exist on their own authority and people who exist on borrowed permission. Those who grasp this don't need to practice, don't need to rehearse. The behavior flows from seeing clearly. You know what to do, not because I'm telling you, because you've recognized something you always knew but were trained to forget. Your existence requires no explanation, no defense, no justification, no approval. Stay vague. This is the technique Dostoevsky embedded in every character who held power. Strategic ambiguity as armor. Let them wonder. Let them fill the gaps. Let them assign you motives more powerful than any you'd claim. And watch what shifts when you stop asking permission to take up space in your own life.